No one expects a wedding to turn into a public humiliation. Crystal chandeliers hung above, casting a warm golden glow across the room. Soft piano music drifted through the air. 200 well-dressed guests laughed, toasted, and celebrated. Everything looked perfect, the kind of wedding people dream about. Until the screen behind the stage lit up. At first, everything was normal. Childhood photos of the bride appeared one by one, innocent smiles. Birthday parties, family vacations, guests smiled. A few claps echoed. The room felt warm, almost intimate. Then suddenly, the screen paused for a brief second. And changed. A different photo appeared. Mine. An old picture. Low quality. The worst possible angle. No editing. No flattering light. Just me, captured at my most vulnerable moment. And then, the words appeared. Large. White. Impossible to ignore. Infertile. Divorced. Failure. The entire room froze for a second. A single second long enough for everyone to read. Then came the laughter. At first, just a few people. Then it spread wave after wave. Some turned to look at me, curiosity mixed with amusement in their eyes. Some covered their mouths while laughing. Others tried to stay polite, but their smiles gave them away. I was sitting at table 14. The last table, right next to the kitchen door. Every time a waiter pushed through, the clatter of dishes rang loudly behind me like a cold reminder that I didn't belong here. On stage, my sister, the bride, held a microphone. She smiled. A perfect, practiced smile. "Don't laugh too hard," she said playfully. "She might actually cry." The room laughed again. I looked toward the head table. My father raised his glass, a smile on his face, as if he were enjoying a show. "It's just a joke, sweetheart," he said. My mother said nothing. She simply swirled her wine, watching the screen, like she was observing a performance. No one stopped it. No one objected. No one stood up for me. I didn't cry. I didn't stand. I didn't say a word. I simply looked down, picked up my phone. My fingers didn't shake strangely enough. The screen lit up. A message was already prepared. Just one word. I stared at it for a second. Then I pressed send. Begin. 3 seconds passed. The screen flickered, and the entire room fell into absolute silence. I remember that night clearly. An iced p.m. on a Thursday. I was sitting alone in my office, the cold white light shining down on my desk. In front of me was an unfinished blueprint for a historic renovation project. My coffee had gone cold hours ago. My back ached. My eyes burned. Just another normal night of work. Then my phone lit up. An unknown number. Virginia area code. But not the city I lived in. I hesitated for a few seconds. Then I answered. "Hello?" A woman's voice came through, calm, professional. "Hello? My name is Dolores Vargas. I'm a nurse at Shenandoah Hills Care Center. Your grandmother asked me to call you." My hand tightened around the phone. My grandmother. The only person in my family who ever made me feel like I belonged. I closed my eyes, trying to stay steady. "Is she okay?" "She's scheduled for hip replacement surgery in 3 weeks," the nurse said. "Her condition is stable, but at 84, there are risks." My heart sank. It had been 2 years since I last saw her. Not because I didn't want to. Because I wasn't allowed to. The last time I visited, I had to sneak in during an afternoon when my father wasn't there. We only had 40 minutes together. 40 minutes I held onto for 2 years. But someone reported it. And after that, my name was removed from the visitor list. I was banned from seeing my own grandmother. "She asks for you often," the nurse said softly. "She keeps your letters under her pillow." I couldn't speak. My throat tightened. Then she added something else. Something that felt painfully familiar. Your father said, you can visit her. I let out a quiet laugh. Of course. Everything with him always comes with conditions. But there's one condition, she continued. You have to attend your sister's wedding first. I opened my eyes, stared at the blank wall in front of me. The wedding, 3 weeks away. I hadn't spoken to my family in 5 years. And now, they wanted me back. Not because they missed me, because they needed me. Or worse, they were planning something. The nurse's voice dropped, almost like a whisper. Your grandmother wanted me to tell you one more thing. I held my breath. She said, they're planning something at the reception. Something about you. Silence. I looked up at the certificate on my wall. Emerging Architect of the Year. 5 years. 5 years of disappearing from their world. And the first thing waiting for me when I return is a trap. I had 2 choices. Stay here. Stay safe. Continue my life. And possibly never see my grandmother again. Or go back. Walk into a room full of people who once destroyed me. Endure whatever they had planned. Just to see her. One more time. I looked at my phone. Then, at the blueprint on my desk. Then I closed my eyes. The decision was already made before I realized it. I was going back. But this time, I wouldn't go unprepared. 16 years ago, I was 18. One evening, the kitchen lights were on, just like every other day. The long wooden dining table was spotless, perfect, like everything in my family. Flawless on the surface. My father sat at the head of the table. He placed a stack of papers in front of me. Sign it. His voice wasn't loud. But there was no room for refusal. I looked down. It was a land transfer document. 2 acres on the edge of town, with a small creek and an old oak tree. A gift from my grandmother when I turned 16. This land is needed for the Oakdale project, he said. She gave it to you. But I need it now. Sign it. I didn't answer immediately. I turned to look at my mother. She was sitting at the end of the table, flipping through a home decor magazine. She didn't look up, didn't say a word, just the soft sound of pages turning, as if my life had nothing to do with her. I turned back. I'm not signing. The air in the room shifted instantly. My father didn't yell. He just went silent, in a way that was far more terrifying. 3 days later, my college fund was gone. No warning. No explanation. Just a letter from the school. Your account has been withdrawn. A week later, he stood at the front door, arms crossed. If you walk out today, don't come back. I stood there, a small duffel bag in my hand. $43 in my account. My little sister stood at the top of the stairs, watching. She didn't say a word. No one said stay. No one said, don't go. I walked out. The door closed behind me. And just like that, my life closed with it. That night, my father told the neighbors. I gave her everything, and she threw it away. He told the story the way he wanted. And in this town, his version was the truth. As for me, I became the daughter who dropped out, ran wild, embarrassed the family. No one asked me. No one needed the truth. I slept in my car for 2 weeks, worked at a gas station, ate instant noodles, studied alone in silence. No family, no home, no one on my side. There was only one choice: break down, or stand up. And I chose to stand. If you were 18 and forced out of your home like this, would you go back and apologize to stay, or walk away and build your life from nothing? Comment 1, if you would walk away and stand on your own. Comment 2, if you would go back. After that night, I had no plan, nowhere to go, no one to call. Just an old car and a life that had been erased overnight. For the first 2 weeks, I slept in my car. The parking lot behind a gas station became my home. At night, It was so cold, I could see my breath in the air. I curled up in a thin jacket, wearing every piece of clothing I owned, but the cold still seeped into my bones. During the day, I worked inside that same station, standing behind the counter, scanning items, smiling at customers like everything was fine. No one knew I had slept in my car the night before. No one knew I had cried until there were no tears left. I learned how to survive before I learned how to live. Most of my meals were instant noodles, cheap bread, or sometimes leftovers customers didn't finish. There were days I drank water just to get through. But the strange thing was, I didn't break. At night, when the station was empty, I quietly opened my books and studied, under cold fluorescent lights, word by word, page by page. No teacher, no guidance, just me, and one single thought: I would not become the person they said I was. A year later, I took the GED exam. I passed. No one knew. No one cared. No congratulations. But it was my first victory. A victory no one could take away. I applied to community college, then transferred to a university. I chose architecture. Not because it was easy, but because I wanted to build something lasting, something no one could take from me with a signature. Those years were brutal. I worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs at once. Classes during the day, waitressing at night, any job I could find on weekends. There were days I slept less than 4 hours. Months when I had to choose between rent and food. Moments when I thought I wouldn't make it. But I kept going. Slow was fine, as long as I didn't stop. At 23, I graduated. Alone, I walked across the stage and received my diploma. In the audience, there was no one. No family. No friends. Not a single cheer for me. But I still smiled. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't need anyone's approval. I stood up on my own. The morning after the call, I sat alone in my office. The glass door was closed. Outside, everything continued as usual, keyboards clicking, phones ringing, quiet conversations. Life moved on. Only I was standing between 2 choices: go back, or disappear forever. I stared at my computer screen, but I couldn't read a single word. One question kept repeating in my mind: am I strong enough to return to the place that once broke me? I knew if I went back, they wouldn't change. My father, my mother, my sister. People like that don't suddenly become kind after a few years. If anything, they just become better at hiding their cruelty. Then I thought about my grandmother, the only person who never turned her back on me, the one who kept every letter I sent under her pillow, the one waiting for me, maybe for the last time. I closed my eyes, and the answer became clear. I was going back, but not as the same person, not the 8-year-old girl who was thrown out, not the one who stayed silent. This time, I was going back with a plan. I stood up and walked over to the next desk. Marcus, my colleague, and the closest thing I had to family. I need your help, I said. He took off his headphones and looked at me. I told him everything. The call, my father's condition, the warning about a plan at the wedding. Marcus didn't interrupt, didn't judge. He just listened until I finished. Then he said something I would never forget. If you go, don't go with hope. Go with a plan. I nodded. He was right. Hope wouldn't protect me. Preparation would. That same night, I booked a hotel in my hometown. Not staying with them. Not depending on them. I took out a dress navy blue. Simple. Well-fitted. Not something my mother chose. Not something to impress anyone. Just something that made me feel like myself. Then I opened my laptop. Created a new file. A presentation. Not to attack, not to get revenge. Just the truth. My real life. What I had built. What they never knew. I titled it, The Real Thea. I saved it. Took a deep breath. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. If you were in this situation, would you go back and face them, or stay away to protect yourself? Comment 1 if you would go back and face them. Comment 2 if you would walk away. 5 days before the wedding, my phone buzzed. A new message. I looked down at the screen. A group chat. The name was simple. Family. I froze for a second. 5 years of silence. And now, they added me like nothing had ever happened. The first message popped up. Paige. Ome. You guys have to see this. Below it was a video. I tapped it. It was a preview of the wedding slideshow. The first few images appeared. Norma. Family photos. Vacations. Birthdays. I almost felt relieved. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe they weren't that cruel. Then the screen changed. A photo of me appeared. Old. Unflattering. Stretched and edited to look worse. And then the words appeared. High school dropout. I paused. My heart slowed. Not from shock, but from familiarity. I kept watching. Next slide. Divorced. Next. Broke. Next. Alone. Each word. Like a cut. Preciso. Cold. Intentional. Another message from Paige appeared. This is going to be hilarious. I didn't reply. Didn't react. I just stared at the screen, waiting to see how far they would go. My mother sent a message. Keep it tasteful. Not. Don't do this. Just make it tasteful. As if the problem wasn't cruelty, but presentation. My father said nothing, not a single message. His silence was always the loudest answer. I took screenshots of everything, every message, every image, sent them to Marcus. No explanation. No come on. Just sent them. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. Marcus. You're still going? I looked at the screen again, then back at those words. Dropout. Divorced. Broke. Alone. I typed back, yes. He replied instantly. Then I'll make sure. You won't just sit there and take it. I put my phone down, opened my laptop. My presentation was still there. 5 slides. Simple. Truth. I stared at it for a long time. Then I added one more. Black background. White text. One sentence. The measure of a family is not how they celebrate their best, but how they treat their most vulnerable. I saved it. Closed the laptop. No more doubt. No more hope. They had made their decision. And this time, so had I. The wedding day. The sky was clear. The sunlight was soft. Everything looked perfect. At least. For those in the front. I walked into the church. No one greeted me. No one looked at me. No one signaled for me to sit with them. I walked all the way to the last row. Like a stranger. No. Not even a stranger. A stranger would at least get politeness. I didn't. At the front, my father was shaking hands like a politician. His smile was flawless. His voice warm and confident, as if he had never thrown his own daughter out of the house. My mother stood near the altar. She leaned toward a friend and said softly, "Both my daughters are here today, even the difficult one." She laughed lightly. The woman turned to look at me. I looked away, like I didn't hear it. The ceremony began. Elegant. Perfect. The bride smiled. The groom looked emotional. People clapped. There was no place for me in that moment. And I didn't try to force one. I just sat there, watching, waiting. The reception followed at a luxury country club, crystal chandeliers, round tables covered in white linen, glasses shimmering under the lights, and a large screen behind the stage. I glanced at it for a second, then looked away. I knew who it was for. I was assigned to table 14. The last table, right next to the kitchen door. Every time it opened, the sound of dishes clattering, chefs shouting, metal hitting. Metal echoed behind me. No one wanted to sit here. And clearly, this is exactly where they wanted me. A woman across from me smiled politely. "So, what do you do?" "I'm an architect," I said. "Oh, how nice." She nodded, then turned to talk to someone else. As if my answer didn't matter. As if I didn't matter. On stage, Paige stepped up, holding a microphone, smiling brightly. "Thank you all for coming today." She talked about our parents, her friends, her new family. Then she paused, looked straight at me. "And my sister, Thea." A brief pause. "Who managed to show up today?" A few soft laughs spread through the room. Not loud, but enough. Enough to feel. My mother appeared beside me, leaning down, whispering, "Don't drink too much. Don't say anything stupid. And, please smile." I smiled, not because she told me to, but because I knew, in just a few minutes, everything would begin. If your own family treated you like this, would you stay silent or stand up for yourself? Comment 1. If you would stand up. Comment 2. If you would stay silent. The lights in the room dimmed. Soft music began to play. All eyes turned toward the large screen behind the stage. "And now," the maid of honor said excitedly, "a special presentation from the family." The screen lit up. The first images appeared Paige's childhood. Her smiling as a little girl. Birthdays. Vacations. A happy family. Guests smiled. Some clapped. Everything. Perfect. I sat still, my hand resting under the table. My phone in my palm. The message "Begin" still there. Not sent. I waited. I gave them one last chance. The screen changed. A line of text appeared. And now, the rest of the family. Soft laughter spread. I looked up. Paige was smiling. My mother leaned back, satisfied. My father raised his glass, as if waiting for the best part. Next slide. It was me. An old photo. Blurry. Unflattering. Edited. And the word beneath it. Dropout. A few laughs. Not loud, but enough. Next slide. Divorced. More laughter. Some people turned to look at me. Next. Broke. Someone laughed out loud. Next. Alone. I could feel the entire room watching me. Like I wasn't a person anymore, but a joke. A story for their entertainment. I didn't move. Didn't react. Just watched. Waited. Then the final slide appeared. A cartoon baby. Crossed out in red. And one word. Large. Clear. Impossible to ignore. Infertile. The room froze. 1 second. 2 seconds. Then, laughter, mixed with discomfort. Paige took the microphone. Smiling. "Don't laugh too hard," she said. "She's a little sensitive." My father looked at me, smiling. "It's just a joke." My mother raised her glass. Said nothing. I stared at the screen. At that word. Repeating in my head. Infertile. It wasn't just a word. It was pain. Private. Deep. And they turned it into entertainment. I looked down. At my phone. My finger touched the screen. No more hesitation. No more chances. I pressed send. Begin. 3 seconds after I pressed begin, the screen froze. The music stopped abruptly. A strange silence filled the entire room. Paige frowned. What's happening? She said into the microphone. I'm trying to keep smiling. The screen flickered once. Then, went black. Completely. A few whispers spread. Probably a technical issue. Just give it a second. Paige turned toward the control area. Can someone fix this? At the back of the room, Marcus was already in position. Calm. Precise. He pulled out Paige's USB. Inserted mine. One motion. Less than 3 seconds. Then the screen lit up again. No music. No cheerful images. Just a black background. White text. Clear. Sharp. The real Thea Linden. The entire room went silent. No laughter. No whispers. Just a heavy stillness. My father stood up. What is this? Turn it off. He looked toward the AV booth. But no one moved. No one obeyed. For the first time in his life, he wasn't in control. The first slide appeared. Me, in my graduation gown. Standing alone. A quiet smile. Text below. No one came to my graduation. I went anyway. A few people in the room inhaled sharply. Next slide. My architecture license. Clear. Official. Licensed architect, Commonwealth of Virginia. Whispers began. Soft, but spreading fast. Next. Mais on a construction site. Hard hat. Blueprints in hand. Senior architect, Mercer and Hollis. Some people turned to look at me. No more mockery. Just surprise. Next. On award plaque, gold shining under the light. Emerging Architect of the Year. A man near the front actually stood up, staring at the screen, then at me. The room was no longer a crowd. It was a witness. The final slide appeared. Black background. White text. Sample. No explanation needed. You called me a dropout. I have a master's degree. You called me a failure. I build structures. You called me nothing. I built myself. I stood up. Didn't walk to the stage. Didn't take the microphone. I just stood at table 14. But this time, the entire room was looking at me. Not like a joke, but like an answer. I stood there. No stage. No microphone. Just a person. At the last table. But this time, the entire room was looking at me. No more laughter. No more mocking glances. Only silence. And expectation. My father walked quickly toward me. Sit down, he said through clenched teeth, trying to stay composed. Stop making a scene. I looked at him, for the first time, without looking away. I'm not making a scene, I said. I'm telling the truth. The air froze. His jaw tightened. You're ruining your sister's wedding. I shook my head. No. I turned to face the room. 200 people. The same people who were laughing at me just minutes ago. I didn't drop out. My voice wasn't loud, but it was clear. My father cut my college fund when I was 17 because I refused to sign over my land. A ripple of whispers spread. I continued. I didn't leave. I was thrown out. Some guests turned to look at my parents. Their expressions changed. No longer curious. Now, judging. I slept in my car. I worked at a gas station. I studied on my own. I got into college by myself. I paused. Not to breathe, but to let it sink in. I'm not a failure. I looked directly at Paige. As for the divorce, my voice softened. I married someone my family approved of. And I left. When I realized I was being controlled, the room went completely silent. No laughter. No whispers. And infertile. I paused. 1 second. 2 seconds. I looked straight at my sister. That's a medical condition. My voice steadied. Not a joke. Paige wasn't smiling anymore. Her lips trembled. I turned to my mother. You knew that. She didn't look at me. She stared at her glass. Then I turned to my father. You knew too. He said nothing. Didn't deny it. Didn't defend himself. Just silence. I looked back at the room. You don't know who I am. Because they never let you know. A long silence followed. No one moved. No one interrupted. And for the first time, I wasn't the one being judged. I was the one telling the truth. If you were in this situation, would you have the courage to stand in front of everyone and speak the truth? Comment 1, if you would stand up and speak. Comment 2, if you would stay silent. The silence stretched. No one laughed anymore. No one spoke. Then, the sound of a chair scraping the floor. Slow. Clear. Deliberate. Everyone turned. A woman stood up from the head table. She wore a deep green jacket. Her silver hair neatly pinned. Her posture straight. Her gaze sharp. Eleanor Whitmore. The groom's mother. A woman everyone in the room respected. Or feared. She stepped toward me. Not rushed. Not hesitant. Each step she took made the room quieter. She stopped a few feet away. Looked at me. Then at the screen. The words still there. Senior Architect, Mercer and Hollis. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if confirming something. Then she spoke. Slow. Precise. Do. Mercer Linden. That's you? I nodded. Yes. A pause. Then she turned. Facing my father. Mr. Linden. Her voice wasn't loud, but it commanded the entire room. The woman you just humiliated in front of 200 guests. She paused. Her gaze sharp as a blade. Is the architect I personally selected for the most important project in this town. A wave of whispers spread across the room. My father froze. His face lost color. I didn't know, he stammered. Eleanor didn't let him finish. You didn't know, because you never cared to know. The words hit like a hammer. The entire room shifted. Paige shot to her feet. That's not true, she's lying, she shouted. Her voice shaking. Her eyes panicked. Eleanor turned to her. Not angry. Just cold. You think I wouldn't recognize the person I've been working with for the past 6 months? No one spoke. No one dared interrupt. The atmosphere had completely changed. From a celebration to a courtroom. And this time, I wasn't the one on trial anymore. The atmosphere in the room completely shifted. Just minutes ago, it was a wedding celebration. Now, it felt like a scene. A place where every eye was watching, judging, reconsidering everything they had just believed. My father stood in the middle of the room. No smile, no confidence. Just a man, trying to hold on to something slipping out of his hands. Eleanor, perhaps we can discuss this privately, he began. No. She cut him off. Short. Finale. This has already been made public. The entire room held its breath. She turned to Garrett, her son. We're leaving. Not a question. A decision. Garrett looked at Paige. His expression had changed. No more admiration. No more pride. Only doubt. You told me she was unstable? He said slowly. But the only unstable thing I've seen tonight is what you did to her in front of 200 people. Paige shook her head. No, it was just a joke. Her voice cracked. Weak. Uncontrolled. Garrett didn't respond. He turned away. Standing beside his mother. The distance between them said everything. In one corner of the room, a couple stood up. Then another table. No shouting. No arguments. Just people leaving. On a bit on. As if they didn't want to be part of this for even another second. My mother rushed toward Eleanor, her smile barely holding. This is just a misunderstanding. Families, they have their moments. No. One word. Cutting through everything. Families don't turn their children into entertainment. My mother froze. No response. No defense. My father tried one last time. The Oakdale Project. Eleanor looked directly at him. Her eyes cold. There is no project anymore. That sentence was the end. Not just of a contract, but of reputation. Of status. Of everything he had built for years. Paige slowly sat down. Like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. She looked around. Empty tables. Avoiding eyes. No one stood with her. No one laughed anymore. Only consequences. I stood there, saying nothing. Because I didn't need to. Everything had already been said. I thought it was over. But it wasn't. Not completely. My father was still standing there. Even after losing the deal. Even after guests started leaving. Even after the entire room turned against him. He was still trying to hold on to the last piece of control. This isn't over, he said, his voice low and sharp. You've gone too far. I looked at him. Calm. No anger. No fear. Just clarity. No, I said. I'm just not finished yet. The room fell silent again. The people who remained turned toward me, waiting. I reached into my jacket, pulled out an envelope, the one my grandmother gave me. I opened it. A single document. Simple, but powerful enough to destroy everything. I think everyone should know this, I said. I held it up. About the Oakdale Project. My father froze. Just for a second. But I saw it. The moment he realized everything was about to collapse. Everyone here was told the land was fully consolidated, right? A few people nodded. Eleanor watched me closely. I continued. It's not. My voice was steady. The central parcel has never belonged to Linden Properties. A wave of whispers exploded. My father stepped forward. Be quiet. This time, he couldn't stay calm. But it was too late. I looked straight at him and said it clearly. It belongs to me. The room erupted. Not whispers anymore. Shock. Disbelief. What? She owns it? I continued. My grandmother transferred the land to me when I was 16, and I never signed it over. Eleanor turned slowly toward my father. Herrgård cold. You told us the entire land was under your control. He said nothing. Couldn't? So you were planning to build on land that doesn't belong to you? The air turned heavy, suffocating. My father opened his mouth. But no words came out. Only silence. For the first time, he had nothing left. Nothing to say. Nothing to control. Nothing to hide. Everything was exposed. Completely. I folded the document. Put it back in my pocket. No need to say more. Because the final blow had already landed. The room fell into suffocating silence. No more arguments. No more excuses. Just the truth, laid bare in front of everyone. My father stood there, saying nothing, reacting to nothing, as if he had just lost something he could never get back. My mother slowly sat down, her wine glass still in her hand. But she didn't drink. She just stared at the table. And Paige, she wasn't crying anymore, wasn't shouting, just sitting there, looking down, as if, for the first time, she didn't know what role to play. I looked at them. Onebiwan. My family. The people who defined me for the first 18 years of my life. And then tried to erase me for the next 16. I took a breath. Not for courage. But to end it. I didn't come here to ruin your wedding, I said. My voice was steady now. Clear. I came because of Grandma. A few people in the room nodded slightly. I continued. After everything. She's the only one who still wanted me here. I looked at Paige. And you chose to turn me into a joke. Then I turned to my mother. And you knew everything. My voice slowed. But you still let it happen. My mother tightened her grip on the glass. But said nothing. I turned to my father. The man who once controlled everything in my life. And you? I paused for a second. You always said I was the one embarrassing this family. I looked around the room. At all the eyes watching. But tonight, my voice lowered. I'm not the one who embarrassed this family. No one argued. No one spoke. Because everyone knew it was true. A long silence followed. Then I said the final words. Words I never thought I would say. If you want me back in your life. I looked straight at my father. Start with respect. No conditions. No control. No negotiations. Just respect. And if you can't? I gave a small smile. Not bitter. Not angry. Just done. Then this is goodbye. I picked up my bag, turned, and walked away. No one called my name. No one stopped me. No one said a word. But this time, I didn't feel alone. Because for the first time, I wasn't leaving because I was forced out. I was leaving because I chose to. 2 days after the wedding, everything started to spread. Quietly. Unofficially. But fast. Very fast. At first, it was just a few messages. Did you hear what happened at the Linden wedding? Then came the phone calls. Side conversations. Subtle head shakes. Knowing looks. In a town like this, reputation doesn't need the media to collapse. It just needs enough people to know the truth. And this time, the truth was undeniable. 3 days later, Linden Properties lost the Oakdale project. Not through an official email. Not through a public announcement. It just stopped being mentioned. Business partners who once seemed close suddenly became busy. Meetings were canceled. Calls went unanswered. My father still went to the office every day. Still wore his suit. Still carried himself like everything was fine. But underneath, everything was falling apart. Piece by piece. A week later, my mother stopped appearing at social events. No invitations. No mentions. The people who once called her dear friend now only offered polite smiles when they crossed paths, then quickly walked away, as if afraid of being associated with her. And Paige, her wedding wasn't canceled. But it was no longer something people talked about. Garrett didn't publicly end things. But he also stopped showing up beside her. Their photos online stopped updating. No more congratulations. Just silence. A kind of silence, more damaging than any scandal. And me? I didn't return to town right away. I went to the hospital, where my grandmother was. When I walked into her room, she was asleep. Small. Fragile. But still there. I sat beside her. Hilt hin. Soft. Warm. Just like before. She opened her eyes. Slowly. Looked at me. And smiled. You came. Just 2 words. But enough to make everything worth it. I didn't tell her about the wedding. I didn't need to. She already knew. Maybe she always did. I just sat there. With her. For the first time in a long time. I didn't need to prove anything. Didn't need to fight. Didn't need to endure. I just needed to stay. 2 weeks after my grandmother's surgery, I returned to the city. Life went on. New blueprints, meetings, projects slowly taking shape. Everything looked the same. But I wasn't. Something had changed. Not on the outside, but within me. I no longer checked my phone every time an unknown number called. No longer wondered if they had sent a message. No longer waited for an apology that might never come. For the first time, I wasn't tied to them anymore. Not because they disappeared, but because I let go. One evening after work, Marcus asked me, "Do you regret it?" I thought about it. Not just the wedding, not just what I said, but everything. 16 years. Loss. Pain. Loneliness. I shook my head. "No," I said. Not because everything was okay, but because I had learned how to stand, even when I had no one beside me. One morning, I received an email. Not from my father, not from my mother, not from Paige, but from Eleanor. The subject line was short. Project continuation. I opened it. Clear. Concise. Professional. She wanted to continue working with me. Not out of emotion. Not out of pity. But because of my ability. For the first time in my life, I was recognized for who I am. Not for whose daughter I was. Not for what family I came from. Just me. I stood by the office window, looking down at the city. The buildings. The streets. The people living their lives. I remembered the nights I slept in my car. The cold. The hunger. The silence. And I smiled. Not because I forgot, but because I survived it. I didn't go back to that house. I didn't call them. I didn't look for them. If they wanted to reach me, they knew where to begin. Not with excuses. Not with control. But with respect. And if they never did, that was okay too. Because I had my own life now. A life that didn't need permission. 3 months later, the Oakdale project began. No longer just a plan on paper. No longer quiet meetings behind closed doors. It was real. I stood on that land. The same land that, 16 years ago, was almost taken from me. A gentle breeze moved through the trees. The small creek still flowed, just like it used to. Everything was the same. Except me. Are you ready? Marcus stood behind me, handing me a hard hat. I took it. Put it on. Nodded. Always. The sound of machinery filled the air. Workers moved into position. Cables were pulled. A structure, beginning to rise. From the very place where I was once told I didn't belong. Eleanor stood a short distance away. She didn't say much. She just watched. But the small nod she gave me was enough. I didn't need to prove anything anymore. Not to her. Not to anyone. I stepped forward. Looked down at the blueprints. Familiar lines. Precise measurements. Things I had taught myself. Piece by piece. I placed my hand on the paper. Light. But firm. This wasn't just a project. This was 16 years. 16 years of being dismissed. 16 years of being called a failure. 16 years of being pushed out of a place I once called home. And now, I was here. Not to prove anything to them, but to prove it to myself. I remembered the wedding night. The laughter. The starries. The words. Dropout. Failure. Infertile. I didn't forget. But they no longer defined me. Because now, I knew who I was. Marcus stood beside me. "Do you think they're watching?" he asked. I smiled, looking into the distance. The town was still there. Those people. Still there. Maybe. I said. But this time, it doesn't matter. I turned back. Looked at the construction beginning. A new start. Not perfect. But mine. Completely mine. If you've ever been underestimated, told you weren't enough, would you dare to stand up and rewrite your own story? Comment 1 if you believe you can. Comment 2 if you're still finding your way. 1 year later, I returned to the town. Not because of them, not because of the past, but because I was no longer afraid of it. The old streets were the same. Familiar shops, familiar faces that might still recognize me. But this time, I didn't lower my head, didn't avoid eye contact, didn't rush to leave. I walked slowly, calmly, like someone no longer carrying weight. The old house was still there. Same white paint, same door, but I didn't go inside. I stopped, just for a few seconds. Long enough to realize something. I no longer belonged there. And it didn't hurt anymore. My destination was the cemetery behind the church, where my grandmother rested. I placed a bouquet of flowers down, sat beside her. No tears, no long speech, just a whisper. I'm okay now. A soft breeze passed through, like a gentle touch. I smiled. I did it, Grandma. Not to prove anything, not to show off, but to complete a promise. Only she and I understood. I didn't hate them anymore. No anger. No need for revenge. Because I had learned something. Some people are not capable of loving you the way you need. And your job is not to change them, but to stop seeking their approval. I stood up, brushed my hands lightly, took one last look, then turned away. No attachment. No regret. Just closure. As I walked out of the cemetery, the sunlight stretched across the road ahead. Clear. Open. I kept walking, without looking back, because this time, I wasn't leaving to escape. I was leaving to live my life.